The rain drummed against the windows of Morgan's auto repair, a steady rhythm that had been Emma's soundtrack since sunrise. Her hands, calloused and stained with engine grease, worked methodically on the carburetor before her, 32 years old with lines around her eyes that belonged to someone older. Emma Morgan had learned to find comfort in the predictable problems of broken engines. Machines, unlike life, could be fixed with the right tools and enough patience. Closing time, Em, her boss Frank, a man with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes, stood in the doorway of the garage bay. You've been at it for 12 hours. That Toyota will still be here tomorrow. Emma didn't look up, her dark hair falling across her face as she tightened a final bolt. Just finishing up. Lily's at Ashley's for dinner. I told her mom I'd pick her up by 8. Frank's eyes softened with familiar concern. 3 years had passed since Michael's death, yet he still watched Emma like she might shatter. You're the best mechanic I've got, but even the best need rest. Emma finally straightened, wiping her hands on a rag that had long ago surrendered its original color to oil and grime. In the fluorescent light, her wedding ring, still worn, still a promise she couldn't bear to break, caught the light. I'll lock up. Frank nodded, knowing better than to push. Storm's getting worse. Drive careful. Alone in the quiet garage, Emma allowed herself a moment of stillness. The photograph pinned above her workbench showed 3 smiling faces: Emma, Michael, and a 5-year-old Lily with her father's eyes and her mother's determined chin. It was taken just 2 weeks before the accident, before the policeman at her door with his hat in his hands, before a motorcycle collision, became the words that divided her life into before and after. Emma checked her phone, 7:30 p.m. Just enough time to pick up Lily and get home before the worst of the storm. She grabbed her worn leather jacket, Michael's once now hers by necessity rather than choice, and pulled it around herself like armor. The drive to Ashley's house was short, but the rain made it treacherous. Emma's old sedan, patched and maintained by her own hands, pushed through puddles that grew deeper with each passing minute. Lightning flashed, illuminating the empty streets of Riverdale, a working-class neighborhood on the outskirts of the city where people kept to themselves and asked few questions. Emma turned onto Maple Street, slowing as she approached the warmly lit house where her daughter had spent the afternoon. Through the front window, she could see Lily sitting at a table, head thrown back in laughter at something beyond Emma's view. The sight squeezed something in Emma's chest, a bittersweet ache that never fully subsided. Lily still knew how to laugh with her whole body, something Emma had forgotten how to do. The moment Emma stepped onto the porch, the door swung open. Lily burst forward, all energy and light, her backpack bouncing against her small frame. Mom, we made cookies, and Ashley's dad showed us how to build a fort, and we watched a movie about dragons. The words tumbled out in a single breath. Emma smiled, a genuine smile that belonged only to these moments with her daughter. Sounds like quite an adventure, Squirt. Say thank you to Mrs. Peterson. Ashley's mother appeared in the doorway, her expression warm, but tinged with the pity Emma had grown accustomed to seeing. She was an absolute joy, as always. You know she's welcome anytime. Emma nodded her thanks, one hand protectively on Lily's shoulder as they dashed through the rain to the car. As Lily buckled herself in, chattering about cookie recipes and dragon battles, Emma checked the time again. 7:50 p.m. They would take the shortcut home through the less-traveled county road that wound past the industrial district. The storm was worsening, thunder now punctuating the rainfall, and Emma wanted nothing more than the safety of their small apartment. What neither of them knew as Emma guided the sedan away from the warm glow of Ashley's house was that this familiar journey home would become the dividing line in their lives, a before and after as definitive as the one that had come 3 years ago. They had just passed the abandoned lumber mill when Lily's voice changed, grew quieter. Mom, do you think Dad can see the lightning from heaven? Emma's hands tightened on the steering wheel. These questions always came without warning, innocent arrows finding the tender places in her heart. I think he can see everything you do, Lily. I think he's very proud of you. Lily seemed satisfied with this answer, turning her attention back to the window where raindrops raced each other down the glass. Emma exhaled slowly, the ache in her chest familiar but no less painful for its familiarity. And that's when she saw it, a dark shape on the roadside illuminated briefly by lightning. Emma's foot instinctively moved to the brakes, slowing the car. Through the curtain of rain, the shape resolved itself. A motorcycle twisted and broken its wheels at unnatural angles. And beside it, a larger shape. A person sprawled motionless in the mud. "Mommy, what's that?" Lily pressed her face against the window. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. Motorcycles. The very sight of them sent cold fear through her veins. Memories of Michael's accident flashing like the lightning outside. For 3 years she had avoided them, crossed streets, to put distance between herself and the machines that had stolen her husband. The irony wasn't lost on her. A mechanic with a deep-seated fear of motorcycles, unable to even service them when they came into the shop. "Stay in the car," Emma said, pulling onto the shoulder hazard lights blinking against the darkness. "I need to see if someone's hurt." Lily's eyes widened. "Is it like when Daddy got hurt?" The question hit Emma like a physical blow. "No, sweetheart, it's different. Lock the doors when I get out. Don't open them for anyone but me." Emma sat frozen for a moment, rain drumming on the roof windshield wipers beating a frantic rhythm. Everything in her screamed to drive on. To protect Lily, to avoid the memories, to stay safe. The county road was deserted. No one would know if she drove past. No one would blame her. But in the rearview mirror, Lily watched, her eyes solemn and trusting. And Emma remembered Michael's words, spoken so often they had become a mantra. "In a world where you can be anything, be kind." With shaking hands, Emma turned off the engine. "Lock the doors," she repeated, and stepped into the storm. The rain fell like ice against Emma's skin as she moved toward the fallen rider. Each step sank into mud water, seeping into her work boots. Lightning flashed again, closer now, briefly illuminating the scene in harsh white light. The motorcycle lay on its side front wheel, bent beyond repair, chrome twisted and broken. It was a large bike built for power rather than speed. Emma's mechanic's eye cataloged the damage: automatically ruptured fuel line, crushed exhaust pipe, snapped handlebars. Not an accident caused by speed, but by something else. Perhaps a skid on the wet road or an obstacle unseen in the storm. But it was the rider who commanded her attention. A large man face down in the mud, one arm outstretched as if reaching for something beyond his grasp. He wore heavy boots, jeans dark with rain, and what might be blood, in a leather vest over a sodden shirt. Emma crouched beside him, rain plastering her hair to her face. "Hey," she called over the storm. "Can you hear me?" The man groaned a sound barely audible above the thunder. Slowly, painfully, he turned his head. His face emerged from the mud, bearded, weathered, with a jagged scar running from his left temple to his jaw. Late 40s, maybe early 50s, with eyes that, even in pain, held a fierce intensity. "Leg," he managed through gritted teeth. "Can't move." Emma's gaze moved to his lower body. His right leg lay at an unnatural angle, jeans torn to reveal a gash that wept blood into the muddy ground. Not life-threatening, but serious enough. Another flash of lightning, and something on the man's vest caught Emma's eye. Her breath caught in her throat as the red and white patch came into focus. A skull with wings beneath it, the words, "Hell's Angels." Emma knew enough about motorcycle clubs to recognize the insignia of perhaps the most notorious one in the country. Fear sharper, now colder than the rain sliced through her. In her mind, stories and warnings collided. News reports of gang violence, Frank's cautionary tales about the clubhouse on the edge of town, whispered rumors in the grocery store when leather-clad men rolled through Riverdale. Emma glanced back at her car, where Lily's face was pressed against the window, watching. She thought of the stories that would unfold if she helped this man, the danger she might be inviting into their carefully constructed life, the risk to Lily. Everything logical told her to walk away to protect what little she had left. But the man groaned again, trying to push himself up from the mud, failing as his injured leg gave way. And Emma saw not a Hell's Angel, but simply a human being in pain. "Don't move," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "You'll make it worse. I'm going to help you up." The man's eyes, sharp despite his pain, studied her face. "Most people see the patch," he said, his voice a low rumble, "and keep driving." Emma swallowed hard. "Well, I'm not most people. Can you put weight on pure other ethic?" With careful movements, Emma positioned herself beside him, sliding her shoulder under his arm. He was massive compared to her, easily 6 feet tall and solid muscle beneath the soaked clothing. For a moment she doubted her strength, but years of lifting engines and wrestling with stubborn transmissions had made her stronger than she appeared. "On three," she said. 1, 2, 3. They rose together, the man biting back a cry of pain as his injured leg lifted from the ground. Emma staggered slightly under his weight, but held firm, becoming a human crutch as they made their slow, excruciating way toward her car. Through the windshield, Lily watched with wide eyes clutching her stuffed rabbit, a gift from her father, to her chest. Emma could read the fear and confusion on her daughter's small face, and it mirrored her own internal conflict. What was she doing bringing this stranger, this Hell's Angel, into their car, into their lives, but it was too late to reconsider. They had reached the passenger door, and Emma had made her choice. She knocked on the window with her elbow. "Unlock the door, Lily. It's okay." The click of the lock releasing seemed unnaturally loud. Emma pulled the door open, helping the man lower himself into the passenger seat. He grunted with pain as his injured leg bent, leaving a smear of blood and mud on the worn upholstery. "I'm Marcus," he said through labored breaths. "Marcus Reeves." Emma circled around to the driver's side, sliding into her seat and turning on the engine. The heater sputtered to life, pushing warm air into the sudden tense silence. In the rearview mirror, she could see Lily shrinking back against her seat, rabbit clutched like a shield. "Emma Morgan," she replied, putting the car in drive. "And that's my daughter, Lily." Marcus nodded acknowledgement rather than introduction. His gaze moved to the rearview mirror, meeting Lily's cautious eyes. Something in his expression softened momentarily. "Hello, little miss," he said, his rough voice gentler. "Sorry about the mud." Lily didn't respond, but her grip on the rabbit loosened slightly. Emma pulled back onto the county road, windshield wipers fighting a losing battle against the downpour. "There's a hospital about 15 minutes from here. I'll get you there." Marcus's hand moved to his leg, pressing against the wound. "Appreciate it." The silence that followed was electric with unasked questions. Emma kept her eyes on the road, but she could feel Marcus studying her, taking in her grease-stained hands the wedding ring the family photograph clipped to the visor. She wondered what he saw, what judgments he was making. "You know what this patch means, right?" Marcus finally asked, his voice low enough that Lily, now humming quietly to her rabbit in the back seat, wouldn't hear. Emma's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "I know. And you stopped anyway." It wasn't a question, but Emma answered. "You needed help." Marcus shifted in his seat, wincing as his leg moved. "That's rare, someone who sees past the patch. Even rarer, a woman alone with her kid." Emma didn't respond. What could she say that she had acted against every instinct for self-preservation, that something in her couldn't drive past, couldn't live with the knowledge that she had left someone suffering, even if that someone wore the insignia of a group most people cross streets to avoid? Instead, she changed the subject. "What happened back there? Did you hit something?" Marcus's expression darkened. "You could say that." A chill that had nothing to do with her wet clothes crept up Emma's spine. Something in his tone suggested this wasn't a simple accident, a moment of bad luck on a rainy night. They drove in silence for several minutes, the only sounds the drumming rain and Lily's soft humming. Emma stole glances at her passenger, noting how he kept looking in the side mirror, as if expecting to see someone following them. His massive hands, knuckles tattooed with faded letters, remained tense on his thighs, ready for something Emma couldn't name. They were approaching the outskirts of town when Marcus spoke again, his voice so low Emma almost missed it beneath the storm. "This wasn't an accident." Emma's breath caught. "What do you mean?" Marcus turned to look at her fully, his gaze intense and unreadable. "I mean, you didn't just help a man who skidded out in the rain. You stepped into something bigger." Before Emma could respond, headlights appeared behind them, approaching fast. Too fast for the weather conditions. Marcus's head snapped around, eyes narrowing at the vehicle gaining on them. "Drive faster," he commanded, all pretense of casualness gone. Emma pressed the accelerator, heart pounding. "What's happening?" But Marcus didn't answer. He kept his eyes on the mirror, watching as the headlights grew larger, brighter. Emma could feel Lily's fear from the back seat, sense her daughter's growing awareness that something was wrong. "Mommy?" Lily's small voice quavered. "It's okay, sweetie," Emma lied, hands white-knuckled on the wheel. "We're almost to the hospital." The vehicle behind them was close enough now that its headlights filled the car with harsh light. Emma could make out the shape of a large pickup truck, its grille a menacing silhouette in her mirror. "Take the next right," Marcus instructed. "Hard turn. Don't slow down." Emma wanted to argue, to demand explanations, but something in his voice, An authority that expected obedience made her comply. She wrenched the wheel right at the upcoming intersection, tires skidding on the wet pavement. Lily cried out as she was thrown against her seatbelt. The truck behind them missed the turn brakes, screeching as it slid past the intersection. Emma caught a glimpse of the driver, a shadowy figure in a dark jacket, before the truck disappeared from view. "Who was that?" she demanded, adrenaline making her voice shake. Marcus's expression was grim, his eyes still scanning the road behind them. "Someone who doesn't want me to make it to that hospital." Emma felt as though the temperature in the car had plummeted. What had she gotten herself into? Who was this man, and what kind of trouble followed him? Most importantly, what danger had she just exposed Lily to? "I should turn around," Emma said more to herself than to Marcus. "Take you to the hospital and then get Lily home." Marcus shook his head. "Too late for that, Emma Morgan. You're part of this now." His words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Emma couldn't fully grasp. All she knew was that the simple act of stopping to help an injured man had somehow altered the course of her carefully reconstructed life, and that the consequences were only beginning to unfold. The county hospital rose before them, a blocky concrete structure with windows glowing like beacons in the storm. Emma pulled into the emergency entrance, relief washing over her at the sight of the brightly lit sanctuary. The truck that had pursued them was nowhere to be seen. "We're here," she announced, as if Marcus couldn't see for himself. Perhaps she needed to say it aloud to convince herself that this strange, frightening journey was nearly over. But as she shifted the car into park, Marcus made no move to get out. He sat motionless, staring at the hospital entrance with an expression Emma couldn't read. "What's wrong?" she asked, impatience edging into her voice. "You need medical attention." Marcus turned to her, his eyes calculating, measuring her in some way she didn't understand. "Once I go in there, reports get filed, questions get asked. You get connected to me officially." Emma frowned. "I'm just someone who helped an injured motorist. That's all." A harsh laugh escaped him. "Nothing is that simple in my world, Emma Morgan." He gestured toward Lily in the back seat. "You have a kid to think about. So I'm giving you a choice. Drop me at the door and drive away. Forget you ever saw me. Forget what I said about this not being an accident. Just go home and lock your doors." Something in his tone made Emma pause. There was warning there, but also something else. Something that might have been concern as rough and unexpected as a callus on a child's hand. Emma looked at Lily in the rearview mirror. Her daughter had fallen asleep, exhausted by the excitement and fear, her head lolling against the seatbelt. Rabbit still clutched to her chest. Such innocence, such vulnerability. Emma had promised herself, after Michael's death, that she would do anything to protect Lily from further pain, further loss. And yet, Emma closed her eyes briefly, remembering the night Michael died. She had gotten the call at work, a motorcycle accident on Highway 16. By the time she reached the hospital, he was already gone. Later, she learned that he had lain on the roadside for nearly 30 minutes before someone called 911. 30 minutes that might have made the difference. "I'm not leaving you at the door," Emma said, finally opening her eyes. "I'm helping you inside." Marcus studied her face. Why such a simple question, but the answer was anything but simple. Emma thought about her options, about the safest choice, about what Michael would have wanted her to do. In the end, she settled for honesty. "Because someone left my husband on the side of the road to die. Because Lily is watching even when she's asleep. Because I have to be someone she can be proud of." Something shifted in Marcus's expression. Respect, perhaps, or understanding. He nodded once, a decisive movement. "All right, but remember I gave you the chance to walk away." Together they made their way into the emergency room, Marcus leaning heavily on Emma, his massive frame dwarfing her despite his injury. Inside, fluorescent lights replaced lightning, and the antiseptic smell replaced the wild scent of rain. Nurses looked up at their entrance, taking in Marcus's Hell's Angels vest, the blood darkening his jeans, the small woman supporting him, and the sleeping child in her arms. Emma had carried Lily from the car, unwilling to leave her alone, even for a moment. The child stirred but didn't wake her weight, a familiar comfort against Emma's chest. "Motorcycle accident," Emma explained, as a nurse approached with a wheelchair. "Possible broken leg laceration." The nurse, a middle-aged woman with tired eyes and capable hands, showed no reaction to Marcus's club affiliation. She'd likely seen it all in her years at the county hospital. "Put him here," she directed, patting the wheelchair. "We'll take him back for assessment." As Emma helped Marcus transfer to the wheelchair, he caught her wrist, his grip firm but not painful. He leaned close, his voice meant for her alone. "You've got heart, Emma Morgan." Not many would have stopped. Fewer still would have stayed. His eyes flicked to Lily, then back to Emma. "But heart can get you hurt in this world." Before Emma could respond, the nurse wheeled him away, already asking questions about allergies and medical history. Emma stood in the middle of the emergency room, Lily heavy in her arms, watching as Marcus disappeared behind swinging doors. She should feel relief, she knew. She had done her good deed, had fulfilled her obligation to basic human decency. Marcus was in professional hands now. She could go home, put Lily to bed, wash away the mud, and the memory of this strange encounter. She could pretend that Marcus's warnings were just the ramblings of a man in pain, that the truck following them had been coincidence, that tomorrow would dawn just like any other day. But as Emma turned to leave, she caught sight of her reflection in the glass doors. A woman with haunted eyes holding a sleeping child, rain-soaked and mud-splattered. And she knew with the same certainty that had compelled her to stop on that storm-swept road, that tonight had changed something fundamental in her carefully balanced world. In the parking lot, Emma settled Lily in the back seat, buckling her in gently to avoid waking her. As she straightened, a movement at the edge of the lot caught her eye, a figure standing in the shadows watching. Emma froze her hand, instinctively moving to shield Lily. But when lightning flashed again, the figure was gone, leaving Emma to wonder if fear had conjured it from nothing. The drive home was tense, Emma checking her mirrors constantly, taking a circuitous route through town rather than the direct path back to their apartment. Only when she had carried Lily inside, locked and chained the door, and checked every window, did Emma allow herself to breathe. She put Lily to bed, gently changing her into pajamas without waking her. Sitting on the edge of the small bed, Emma brushed hair from her daughter's forehead, studying the face that was both so like Michael's and yet entirely Lily's own. What would Michael think of what she had done tonight? Would he be proud of her courage or terrified by her recklessness? "I did what you would have done," she whispered to his memory. "I couldn't just drive by." Later, unable to sleep, despite her exhaustion, Emma stood at her kitchen window, watching the rain continue its assault on the world outside. She thought of Marcus Reeves, his warning, his intensity, the way he had looked at Lily with something like softness in his hard eyes. What had he meant saying she had stepped into something bigger? What forces had she unwittingly engaged by her simple act of compassion? Emma's hand moved to her wedding ring, twisting it absently as she stared into the storm-dark night. She had survived loss before, had rebuilt a life from the ashes of tragedy. Whatever came next, she would face it with the same determination that had carried her through the darkest days after Michael's death. But as lightning illuminated the parking lot below, Emma caught sight of something that made her blood run cold. A motorcycle, sleek and powerful, parked in the shadows beneath the building's awning, and beside it a figure in a leather vest standing sentinel in the rain. The Hells Angels were watching her apartment. Whatever this was, wherever it was leading, it had already followed her home. Dawn broke gray and sullen over Riverdale, the storm having passed but leaving the world drenched in its wake. Emma moved through her morning routine mechanically, making Lily's lunch, braiding her hair, reviewing spelling words over breakfast. If Lily noticed the dark circles beneath her mother's eyes, the way Emma checked the window with each passing sound, she didn't mention it. "Can I wear my blue sneakers today?" Lily asked, poking at her cereal. Emma blinked, pulling herself back from thoughts of leather vests and ominous warnings. "Your blue sneakers sure squirt." As Lily ran to find her shoes, Emma allowed herself one more glance out the window. The motorcycle was gone, its sentinel rider vanished with the night. Had she imagined it, had exhaustion and fears conjured phantoms from shadow and rain? The walk to Lily's school was 4 blocks a journey Emma usually treasured. A chance for Lily's hand in hers, for conversations about clouds and sidewalk cracks, and the important social dynamics of 3rd grade. But today Emma's senses were heightened, every passing car, a potential threat, every stranger, a possible observer. "Mom, you're squishing my hand," Lily complained as they approached the school gates. Emma loosened her grip, forcing a smile. "Sorry, honey, just thinking about work." At the school entrance, Emma knelt to Lily's level, straightening her jacket with hands that betrayed none of her internal turmoil. Have a great day, Lilybug. I'll pick you up at 3. Lily's small arms wrapped around Emma's neck, a hug that smelled of strawberry shampoo and childhood. Love you more than all the stars, she said their familiar goodbye. Love you more than all the stars and all the planets, too, Emma replied, the ritual momentarily grounding her in normalcy. As Lily skipped away to join her friends, Emma straightened, scanning the schoolyard and the street beyond. No leather vests, no watching eyes, no sign of the danger Marcus had warned about. Perhaps it had all been overblown. The paranoid delusions of a man in shock from his injuries. The garage was busy when Emma arrived, a line of cars waiting for everything from oil changes to transmission overhauls. Frank raised an eyebrow at her appearance. Rough night, he asked, handing her a work order for a Honda Civic with brake problems. Emma managed a non-committal grunt, already moving toward the vehicle bay. Work would be her sanctuary today. The familiar problems of machines, a welcome distraction from the unfamiliar problems of Hell's Angels and mysterious pursuers. For hours, Emma lost herself in the rhythm of her tools, the satisfaction of diagnosing and fixing the simple physics of metal in motion. By early afternoon, sweat had replaced the chill of fear, and the events of the previous night had receded to a troubling but distant memory. Until Frank appeared at her side, his expression uncharacteristically serious. "There's someone here to see you, says it's important." Emma straightened, wiping grease from her hands. "Who is it?" Frank's eyes darted toward the office. "Big guy, leather vest. Looks like trouble." The world seemed to tilt beneath Emma's feet. Marcus Reeves, here at her workplace. The fragile normality she had constructed throughout the day shattered like glass. Emma found him leaning against the office counter, seemingly recovered from last night's injuries. His leg was bandaged beneath his jeans, and he favored it slightly, but otherwise showed no signs of the man who had lain broken in the mud. In daylight, without the softening veil of rain and darkness, Marcus Reeves was even more intimidating. 6'3" of hard muscle and harder expression, the Hells Angels patch on his leather vest stark against the mundane backdrop of the garage office. He straightened when he saw her, an unreadable expression crossing his scarred face. "Emma Morgan." Emma stopped several feet away, acutely aware of Frank watching from the doorway, of the other mechanics pretending not to stare. "Marcus, shouldn't you be in the hospital?" A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "I heal fast." Silence stretched between them, taut with unspoken questions. Finally, Emma sighed. "What are you doing here? How did you even find me?" "Small town. Mechanic named Emma who fixes cars but not bikes. Wasn't hard." Marcus glanced at Frank, then back to Emma. "We need to talk. Privately." Emma crossed her arms, fear crystallizing into defiance. "Whatever you have to say, you can say it here." Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly. "You sure about that?" The challenge hung in the air between them. Emma thought of Lily safely at school for 2 more hours. Thought of how easily Marcus had found her workplace, how easily he could find their apartment. Lily's school. 5 minutes, she conceded. Outside. The alley behind the garage was narrow, lined with dumpsters and discarded auto parts. Emma led Marcus there, maintaining a careful distance between them. When she turned to face him, her back was to the wall, a tactical decision that left her feeling simultaneously trapped and protected. "Talk," she said. Marcus studied her, and Emma had the uncomfortable sense that he was assessing her, measuring her worth against some standard she couldn't see. "You've got shadows," he said finally. Emma frowned. "What?" "Since last night. Eyes on you, on your place." Marcus gestured vaguely toward the street. "My brothers. Watching." Cold washed through Emma's veins. So she hadn't imagined the motorcycle outside her apartment. Why protection? Emma almost laughed, the sound catching painfully in her throat. "Protection from what I didn't need protection until I helped you." Marcus didn't flinch at her accusation. "You stopped for a Hell's Angel. That means something, Emma Morgan. To us and to those who want to hurt us." "I stopped for an injured human being," Emma corrected, anger rising to replace fear. "I didn't sign up for whatever this is." "Doesn't matter what you signed up for. You're in it now." Marcus stepped closer, his massive frame blocking out the light from the street. "There's a meeting tonight, at our clubhouse. Some people want to thank you properly." Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. "No, absolutely not. I'm not getting involved in gang business. A shadow crossed Marcus's face. Club, not gang. His voice had hardened, edged with a warning Emma instinctively recognized. And it wasn't a request. It was respect. Emma thought of Lily, of their small apartment, of the life she had painstakingly rebuilt from the wreckage of grief. She thought of Marcus's words from the night before. This wasn't an accident. And the truck that had pursued them through the rain. I have a daughter, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I can't put her in danger. Something shifted in Marcus's expression. Not softening exactly, but a change in the quality of his attention. The kid stays with someone safe. You come alone, 9 o'clock. He reached into his vest pocket, withdrawing a folded piece of paper. Emma took it cautiously, unfolding it to find an address scrawled in blocky handwriting. How do I know this isn't a trap? She asked, the paper trembling slightly in her hand. Marcus's laugh was rough, unexpected. If I wanted to hurt you, would I do it at our clubhouse in front of witnesses with paperwork? The logic was twisted but somehow persuasive. Still, Emma shook her head. I can't. Marcus's expression darkened. Like I said, it wasn't a request. He turned to go, limping slightly as he moved toward the alley entrance. At the corner, he paused, looking back at her. Wear something that covers your arms. Respect goes both ways. Then he was gone, leaving Emma alone in the alley, the paper clutched in her hand like a summons to her own execution. She slumped against the wall, knees suddenly weak. What had she gotten herself into? How had stopping to help an injured man on a rainy night led to this? To Hell's Angels watching her apartment, to cryptic warnings about eyes and shadows, to an invitation that felt more like a threat. Emma thought of her options. She could go to the police, but what would she tell them? That she had helped a Hell's Angel, and now felt threatened by his gratitude. They would either laugh her out of the station, or worse, start an investigation that might draw more attention to her and Lily. She could run, pack up Lily, and leave town, start fresh somewhere new. But running took money, resources, planning. And something told Emma that the Hells Angels' reach extended far beyond Riverdale's city limits. Or she could go to the meeting, hear what they had to say, maybe find out exactly what she had stumbled into and how she could extract herself and Lily from it. The paper in her hand seemed to grow heavier with each passing moment. 9 o'clock, a choice that felt like no choice at all. Back in the garage, Frank was waiting, concern etched deep in his weathered face. Everything okay, Em? That guy looked like serious trouble. Emma folded the paper into her pocket, forcing a calmness she didn't feel. It's fine, just someone grateful for some help I gave. Frank's expression said he didn't believe her, but he nodded anyway. You know you can talk to me if you're in some kind of jam, right? I've been around the block a few times. Emma managed a smile that didn't reach her eyes. I know, Frank. Thanks. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur. Emma moved mechanically from one task to the next, her mind elsewhere, planning, worrying, rehearsing scenarios that all ended in disaster. At 2:30, she washed the worst of the grease from her hands and changed into the clean shirt she kept in her locker. Lily couldn't see her, like this, distracted and afraid. Children sensed fear like animals sensed storms. The walk to Lily's school was a study in hyper-awareness. Emma cataloged every vehicle, every pedestrian, searching for leather vests or watching eyes. She found none yet. The absence of visible surveillance did nothing to ease her growing paranoia. Lily bounded out of school with her usual energy backpack, bouncing a paper clutched in her hand. Mom, I got a gold star on my spelling test, all the words right. Emma gathered her daughter into a hug that was perhaps a moment too long, too tight. That's wonderful, Squirt. I'm so proud of you. As they walked home, Lily chattered about her day. The spelling test, a game of tag at recess, a science experiment involving beans and paper towels. Emma made the appropriate responses, asked the right questions, but her mind was split. Half present with Lily, half planning for the night ahead. At home, Emma made an early dinner, Lily's favorite pasta with the sauce that hid pureed vegetables, and called her sister Janet, who lived on the other side of town. Hey, Jan, I know it's last minute, but could Lily stay with you tonight? I've got a thing. Janet's voice was warm with the easy affection of siblings who had weathered storms together. A thing like a date. Emma almost laughed at the absurdity. A date. If only it were something so simple, so normal. No, not a date. Just a work thing. Janet's pause spoke volumes. Emma had never been a good liar, especially not to her sister. Emma, are you okay? You sound weird. I'm fine, Emma insisted, watching Lily twirl pasta onto her fork. Just tired. Busy day at the shop. Janet didn't press another mercy between sisters who knew when to push and when to let be. Sure, bring her over. The girls will be thrilled for a weeknight sleepover. Relief washed through Emma. Lily would be safe with Janet miles away from whatever awaited Emma at the Hells Angels clubhouse. Thanks, Jan. I owe you. After dinner, Emma helped Lily pack an overnight bag. Pajamas, toothbrush, the stuffed rabbit that went everywhere, a change of clothes for school tomorrow. They drove to Janet's comfortable suburban home as the sun began its descent, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold that belied the darkness of Emma's thoughts. Janet met them at the door, her 13-year-old daughter peering eagerly around her for Lily. Sleepover on a school night, best aunt ever, Lily crowed already halfway into the house. Janet hugged Emma, then held her at arm's length, studying her face. You sure you're okay, Emma nodded, forcing brightness into her voice. Just tired. I'll pick her up before school tomorrow, okay? As Emma drove away from Janet's house, Lily's excited face already forgotten in the games she would play with her cousin, the reality of what lay ahead settled heavy on Emma's shoulders. 9 o'clock, the Hells Angels clubhouse. A thank you that felt like initiation into something she couldn't comprehend. Back at her apartment, Emma stood before her closet, Marcus's words echoing in her mind. Wear something that covers your arms. Respect goes both ways. She selected a long-sleeve black Henley dark jeans and her leather jacket. Michael's jacket, the one piece of him she wore like armor against the world. As she dressed, Emma caught sight of herself in the mirror. Pale, determined, afraid. Who was this woman preparing to walk into a den of outlaws? By choice, what would Michael think? Seeing her now, would he recognize the scared but resolute girl he had married in this widow? With shadows in her eyes, Emma touched her wedding ring, a silent communion with the man who had taught her courage. What would you do? She whispered to his memory. The answer came not in words but in certainty. Michael would go. He would face whatever waited, would look danger in the eye rather than cower from it. And he would do it for family, for the people he loved. At 8:30, Emma left her apartment, the address clutched in her hand, her keys a cold weight in her palm. She had no illusions about the night ahead, no expectations that this meeting would be the end of whatever had begun on that rain-soaked road. But she would go, would listen, would find a way to protect Lily from the consequences of Emma's single act of compassion. As she started her car, Emma noticed a motorcycle parked across the street. Not the same one from last night, but similar, its rider, a silhouette against the gathering darkness. He nodded once in acknowledgement that sent chills down Emma's spine, then started his engine ready to lead or follow her into the night. Emma took a deep breath, steadying herself against the fear that threatened to overwhelm her. Then she put the car in drive and began the journey to the Hells Angels clubhouse, a journey that would either provide answers or lead her deeper into the mystery that had begun with a broken motorcycle and a man in the mud. I'll write part 2 according to your outline in 6,000 words, continuing the story of Emma and her involvement with the Hells Angels. The clubhouse loomed at the edge of town, a converted warehouse with no windows and a single metal door illuminated by a harsh floodlight. Emma's hands trembled slightly as she parked her sedan between rows of gleaming motorcycles, each one a testament to power and belonging. The contrast was stark, her practical, aging car amid these machines built for freedom and intimidation. The motorcycle that had escorted her pulled alongside its rider, dismounting with practiced ease. In the harsh light, Emma could see he was younger than Marcus, maybe 30, with a trim beard and eyes that assessed her with neither hostility nor welcome, merely observation. Follow me, he said simply, not waiting for her response. Emma took a deep breath, thinking of Lily safely tucked away at Janet's house, miles from whatever awaited inside this building. She slid her phone into her jacket pocket, made sure it was on silent, and followed the nameless rider toward the metal door. Bass-heavy music throbbed from within, growing louder as they approached. The young rider knocked, 3 sharp raps followed by 2 slower ones, a code that was apparently recognized as the door swung open immediately. Heat, smoke, and sound rolled out like a physical wave. Emma hesitated at the threshold, her every instinct screaming to turn back. But the rider stood waiting, his expression making it clear retreat was not an option. Steeling herself, Emma stepped into the lair of the Hells Angels. The interior was nothing like she had imagined. Instead of the dirty, chaotic space depicted in movies, the clubhouse was organized almost military in its precision. The main room stretched long and wide, dominated by a massive bar along one wall, in rows of tables arranged with surprising neatness. Motorcycle parts and tools hung on the walls like art, alongside framed photographs in the club's insignia rendered in various mediums. But it was the people who commanded attention. At least 30 men filled the space, most wearing the leather vest. Cuts, Emma had heard them called, that marked them as full members of the club. They ranged in age from 20s to 60s, some with the weathered faces of men who had lived hard lives in the open air, others bearing the unmistakable marks of violence. Scars, missing fingers, tattoos that told stories Emma could only guess at. Conversation didn't stop when she entered, but it quieted attention, shifting subtly as word of her presence moved through the room like a current. Emma felt their gaze, measuring curious, some openly appraising her in ways that made her skin crawl, others merely acknowledging her existence before returning to their conversations. Her escort led her through the crowd, people moving aside without being asked. Emma kept her eyes forward, chin up, refusing to show the fear that threatened to close her throat. Michael had taught her that, when afraid, move as if you're not. Fear invites predators. At the far end of the room sat a raised table separate from the others. Here 5 men were engaged in quiet conversation, their cuts bearing additional patches that marked rank within the club. Emma recognized Marcus immediately, his massive frame, unmistakable, even seated. Beside him sat an older man, perhaps 60, with a full beard, gone mostly gray and eyes sharp enough to cut glass. As Emma approached, Marcus looked up. Something like approval flickered across his face when he saw her, a slight nod acknowledging her courage in coming. He stood towering over the table. "Emma Morgan," he announced, his voice carrying enough authority to silence the remaining conversations. "The woman who stopped." The gray-bearded man rose more slowly, studying Emma with an intensity that felt like a physical touch. "I'm Raymond," he said, his voice deep and controlled, "president of the Riverdale Charter." Emma swallowed, suddenly aware of how out of place she was, how vulnerable. "I'd say it's nice to meet you, but I'm still not sure why I'm here." A ripple of something, surprise, perhaps respect, moved through the nearby listeners. Raymond's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "Straight to the point, I like that." He gestured to an empty chair at their table. "Sit." It wasn't a request. Emma sat, acutely conscious of the eyes on her, of how easily she could be overwhelmed if these men decided to harm her. But something told her that wasn't their intention, at least not tonight. Marcus took the seat beside her, his bulk somehow reassuring despite being part of what threatened her. Raymond resumed his place at the head of the table, the other 3 men watching silently. "You helped one of our brothers?" Raymond said, folding his hands on the table. No rings adorned his fingers, but tattoos covered his knuckles. Faded blue words Emma couldn't quite make out. "That matters to us." Emma met his gaze. "I would have stopped for anyone. It was raining. He was hurt." Raymond nodded as if she had confirmed something important. "Most wouldn't stop for us. They see the patch," he tapped, the Hells Angels insignia on his vest, "and they see monsters. Criminals." "Aren't you?" The words escaped before Emma could stop them, hanging in the air like a challenge. Instead of anger, Raymond laughed, a genuine sound that momentarily transformed his hard face. "Honest too. Good." He leaned forward. "We're a motorcycle club, Emma Morgan. Family to each other. Sometimes the law doesn't see things our way, but we have a code. Honor, loyalty, protection of our own." Emma thought of the motorcycles that had appeared outside her apartment, of Marcus's words about shadows and eyes. "And now you think I'm one of your own because I helped Marcus." Marcus shifted beside her. "You stopped when no one else would. You put yourself and your kid at risk to help someone society told you to fear. That means something." Raymond nodded. "It means you're either very brave or very foolish. Maybe both." His expression turned serious again. "But it also means you stepped into something you don't understand." Emma's heart quickened. What Marcus said about his accident not being an accident, what did he mean? Raymond exchanged looks with the other men at the table. After a moment's silent communication, he seemed to reach a decision. "Show her," he said to one of the men, a hard-faced individual with a shaved head and arms completely covered in tattoos. The man reached into a leather saddlebag beside his chair and withdrew a manila envelope. He slid it across the table to Emma. With hesitant fingers, she opened it and removed a stack of photographs. The first showed Marcus's motorcycle on the roadside, just as Emma had found it. But the second showed something she hadn't seen in the darkness and rain. Clear evidence that the bike had been forced off the road. Deep scratches along the left side paint transfers that didn't match the surroundings. The distinct pattern of damage that could only come from a vehicle striking it deliberately. Someone ran him off the road, Emma murmured, looking up at Raymond. Who? The Reapers. Raymond's voice had hardened, all trace of humor gone. Rival club. We've had disagreements over territory, business interests. Emma looked at the remaining photos. Surveillance images showing men in leather cuts different from the Hells Angels, their patches bearing a grim Reaper figure. One photo showed them outside a bar. Another depicted them following a Hells Angel rider from a distance. This is a gang war, Emma said, her mouth suddenly dry. And I walked right into the middle of it. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Not a gang war, club conflict. Raymond silenced him with a look. Emma deserves the truth. He turned back to her. Yes, it's a conflict that has turned violent. The Reapers tried to kill Marcus that night. Not just hurt him, kill him, send a message. What message? That no angel is safe, that they can get to us anywhere, anytime. Raymond's eyes never left Emma's face. And then you came along, a civilian, a woman alone with her child, and you helped him. Understanding dawned on Emma, cold and terrible. And now they think I'm connected to you. Raymond nodded. To them, you're either a member's woman or someone important to the club. Either way, you're leverage. Emma's hands clenched into fists beneath the table. I have a daughter, an 8-year-old little girl, and your club conflict has put her in danger. Anger flashed in Raymond's eyes, but not directed at her. We don't involve children or families. That's our code. The Reapers. He trailed off, his expression darkening. They don't share our principles. Their president, Max Wilson, has no limits. Marcus added, his voice low with controlled rage. No line he won't cross. Something in Marcus's tone caught Emma's attention, a personal edge to his hatred. You know him. Marcus's jaw tightened. I knew his sister, Kate. Pain flickered across his scarred face. We were together years back. She died of an overdose. Max blamed me, said I got her into the life. Did you? Emma asked, unable to stop herself. Marcus met her gaze. No, she was using when I met her. I tried to help her get clean. His massive hands curled into fists on the table. Max couldn't accept that she chose the drugs over living. Easier to blame me. Raymond cleared his throat. The point is, Emma Morgan, the Reapers have seen you with Marcus. They'll assume you're under our protection. And they'll be right. Emma shook her head, fear giving way to anger. I don't want your protection. I want out of this. I want my daughter safe. I want my normal life back. It's too late for that, Raymond said, not unkindly. You made your choice when you stopped on that road. That's not fair, Emma protested. Fair has nothing to do with it. Raymond leaned forward. The Reapers know your face now. They'll find out where you live, where you work, who your daughter is. They won't believe you're just a good Samaritan who happened to help an angel. That kind of coincidence doesn't exist in our world. Emma felt trapped, cornered by circumstances beyond her control. So what am I supposed to do, live with Hell's Angels following me around for the rest of my life? Raymond exchanged glances with Marcus. For now, yes, we'll have brothers watching your place, your work, your daughter's school, not interfering, just present. A reminder to the Reapers that you're under our wing. And if that's not enough, Emma asked, already knowing the answer. Raymond's expression was grave. Then we deal with the threat directly. Emma thought of Lily, her laughter, her innocence, the way she still believed the world was fundamentally good and safe. How could Emma protect that belief while living under the shadow of rival motorcycle clubs? I don't have a choice, do I? Raymond's eyes softened slightly. We all have choices, Emma Morgan. You chose to stop that night. Now you choose how to face what comes next. As the implications of her situation settled over her, Emma noticed something she had missed in her initial fear. A door at the back of the clubhouse, opening to reveal a group of women entering, carrying food and drinks. Some wore patches identifying them as property of various members, but others seemed to hold their own status respected rather than possessed. Raymond followed her gaze. You thought we were just a bunch of outlaws, didn't you? No families, no connections? Emma didn't deny it. The news doesn't exactly show this side of motorcycle clubs. The media sees what it wants to see, Raymond said dismissively. We're more than patches and bikes, Emma Morgan. We're a community, a family. He gestured toward the room at large. Every man here would die for his brothers, for their families. And now for me and my daughter. Emma couldn't keep the skepticism from her voice. Yes, Raymond said simply, because Marcus says you're worthy of it, because you showed courage and compassion when most would have shown fear and indifference. The weight of those words, the expectation, the debt, the unwanted connection, pressed down on Emma like a physical force. She had stopped to help a stranger following an instinct of basic human decency. How could such a simple act have spiraled into this? I need to think, she said finally. This is a lot. Raymond nodded. Of course, he signaled to one of the men. Jake will take you home when you are ready. In the meantime, he gestured to the room. You're welcome here. No one will bother you. As if on cue, conversation resumed around them, the momentary focus on Emma shifting away. Raymond turned to speak with the other men at the table, leaving Emma sitting beside Marcus, adrift in this strange new reality. I'm sorry, Marcus said quietly, his rough voice pitched for her ears alone. If I could have spared you this, I would have. Emma studied him. The scar that ran from temple to jaw, the weathered skin, the eyes that had seen more violence than she could imagine. Yet there was something genuine in his regret, something human beneath the intimidating exterior. Your leg, she said, noticing how he sat with it extended. How bad is it? Marcus seemed surprised by the question, by her concern despite everything. Clean break, 6 weeks in a cast, they said. I took it off after 3. At Emma's shocked expression, he shrugged. Not my first broken bone. Emma wanted to ask more about his history with the club, about Kate and Max Wilson, about how a man like him came to inspire such loyalty in others. But the weight of her own situation pressed more urgently. Marcus, I need to know, is Lily really in danger? His hesitation told her everything. The Reapers wouldn't target a child directly. But, he paused, choosing his words carefully, if they wanted to hurt you to get to us, they wouldn't care if she was caught in the middle. Cold fear washed through Emma. Then I need to leave, take Lily and go somewhere else, start over. Marcus shook his head. They'd find you. Men like Max Wilson don't let go of grudges, and running would mean you're unprotected. So I'm just supposed to live with this, with people watching my home, following me around with the constant fear that some rival gang might use my daughter to send a message? Frustration edged her voice, but Marcus didn't react to it. For now, yes. Until we resolve things with the Reapers. And how will you do that? More violence, more revenge. When does it end? Marcus had no answer for her, and that silence was perhaps more frightening than any threat. The cycle of retaliation and vengeance that had drawn her in showed no sign of conclusion, no exit ramp Emma could take to safety. After nearly an hour of uncomfortable conversation with Marcus and brief introductions to various club members, Emma had reached her limit. The noise, the smoke, the constant awareness of danger, it all pressed in on her until she felt she couldn't breathe. I need to go, she told Marcus. Lily has school tomorrow. I have work. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. Jake will follow you home. Make sure you're safe. Emma wanted to protest, to insist she didn't need their protection, but the evidence suggested otherwise. She merely nodded, gathering her jacket. As she moved toward the door, Raymond called her name. Emma turned to find the club president watching her with that same measuring gaze. Sunday, he said. We're having a barbecue at the lake house. Families, kids. Bring your daughter. At Emma's startled expression, he added, it's safe ground, neutral territory, no club business, just people. Emma's first instinct was to refuse to keep Lily as far from this world as possible. But something in Raymond's expression, an offer of normality, of connection beyond fear, made her hesitate. I'll think about it, she said finally. Raymond nodded, accepting this non-commitment. Your choice. Always your choice, Emma Morgan. As Jake escorted her to her car, Emma couldn't help but reflect on those words. Choice. Had she really had any since the moment she spotted Marcus in the rain? Or had that single decision to stop to help set her on a path she was now powerless to leave? The drive home with Jake's motorcycle, a constant presence in her rearview mirror, gave Emma time to think. By the time she reached her apartment, exhaustion had replaced fear, a bone-deep weariness that made even climbing the stairs an effort. Jake waited until she was safely inside before pulling away, the sound of his motorcycle fading into the night. Emma locked and chained the door, then methodically checked every window, every possible entry point. Only then did she sink onto the couch, the events of the evening washing over her in waves. Hell's Angels, the Reapers, club wars, and personal vendettas. And somehow, improbably, Emma and Lily caught in the middle, protected and endangered in equal measure. As Emma finally drifted into troubled sleep, one thought repeated itself. How could she possibly keep Lily safe in a world that had suddenly revealed itself to be far more dangerous than she had ever imagined? 3 days passed in a strange new normal. Emma went to work, picked Lily up from school, cooked dinner, helped with homework, all the routines of their life continuing on the surface. But beneath that normalcy, everything had changed. The motorcycles were always there, sometimes parked across the street, sometimes cruising slowly past. Different riders at different times, but always present, always watching. Emma began to recognize some of them. Jake with his trim beard, a heavy-set man Lily had nicknamed Bear for his size and gruff manner, an older rider with a white ponytail who nodded respectfully whenever he saw Emma. At first, she had kept Lily away from the clubhouse barbecue, inventing excuses about work. But after nearly a week of constant surveillance, of living with the knowledge that Lily might be in danger, Emma's resistance began to crumble. Perhaps seeing the Hells Angels in daylight away from the clubhouse would help her understand what she was dealing with. Perhaps it would give her some measure of control in a situation where she felt increasingly powerless. So on Sunday morning, Emma found herself telling Lily they were going to a picnic at the lake. "With your friends from work?" Lily asked, pulling on the yellow sneakers she favored for outdoor adventures. Emma hesitated. "New friends, they have motorcycles." Lily's eyes widened. "Like Daddy's?" The innocent question hit Emma like a physical blow. Michael's motorcycle, sold after his death too painful a reminder, had been nothing like the massive machines the Angels rode. His had been a sport bike, sleek and fast, but to Lily, all motorcycles connected to her father, to the parent she had lost too young to remember clearly. "Bigger than Daddy's," Emma said gently. "And they're nice people, but they look a little scary. Like in your books, where the dragon turns out to be friendly." Lily considered this, head tilted in that way she had when processing new information. "So they're friendly dragons?" Emma couldn't help but smile. "Something like that. Just be your usual polite self, okay?" The lake house was actually a rambling property about 20 minutes outside town. Several acres of woods and shoreline with a main cabin and smaller outbuildings. As Emma drove down the gravel access road, she counted at least 30 motorcycles parked in neat rows alongside pickup trucks and family cars. "Wow," breathed Lily from the backseat. "That's a lot of motorcycles." Emma parked at the edge of the clearing, suddenly uncertain. What was she doing here? Bringing her daughter into the world of outlaw motorcycle clubs, even for an afternoon, seemed like a terrible parenting decision. Before she could reconsider, Marcus appeared beside her car, his imposing frame unmistakable. He opened Lily's door with surprising gentleness. "Hello, little miss," he said, crouching to Lily's level, despite the obvious discomfort it caused his injured leg. "I'm Marcus. Your mom helped me when I was hurt." Lily studied him solemnly, taking in the leather vest, the tattoos, the scarred face. Then, with the unpredictable acceptance only children can manage, she smiled. "Mom says you're like a friendly dragon. You look scary, but you're nice." Emma closed her eyes briefly in embarrassment, but Marcus laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his hard face. "Your mom is a smart lady, child," he said. "And you're Lily, right? There are some kids down by the lake building sandcastles. Want to see?" Lily looked to Emma for permission. After a moment's hesitation, Emma nodded. "I'll be right behind you." As Marcus led Lily toward the lake, maintaining a respectful distance that told Emma he understood her caution, Raymond approached from the main cabin. Today, without the formal setting of the clubhouse, he seemed less intimidating. Still commanding, but more human in jeans and a plain black t-shirt, his gray beard neatly trimmed. "You came," he said, approval in his voice. "Good." Emma watched Lily reaching the lakeshore where several children were indeed building elaborate sandcastles. "I'm not sure it is good, bringing her here." Raymond followed her gaze. "She's safer with us than alone with you. The Reapers are still watching." A chill ran through Emma. "You've seen them." Raymond nodded. "Drive-bys, men in unmarked cars outside your work. Nothing direct yet, but they're gathering information." His expression darkened. "Max Wilson is methodical. He'll learn everything about you before he makes a move." Emma thought of the hours Lily spent at school of the apartment with his flimsy locks, of how vulnerable they were despite the angel's surveillance. "What am I supposed to do live like this indefinitely?" "Not indefinitely," Raymond assured her. "We're handling it." Something in his tone warned Emma not to ask for details. Instead, she looked around at the gathering. Families grilling children, playing women, talking in groups. Like any summer barbecue, except for the leather cuts, the club insignia, the underlying awareness of violence. "All these people," Emma said, "do they just accept it, the danger, the constant watching?" Raymond's expression softened slightly. "They were born to it or chose it with open eyes." "My own daughter," he nodded toward a woman in her 30s who was setting out food on a picnic table, "grew up in the life, knows nothing else." "And is she happy?" Emma couldn't help asking. Raymond considered this with surprising seriousness. "Happy, maybe not always. Safe, yes. Loved, absolutely." He studied Emma's face. "That's what the club really is, Emma Morgan. Not outlaws, not criminals. Family, protection, belonging." Before Emma could respond, Lily came running back, cheeks flushed with excitement. "Mom, they have a rope swing. Can I try it, please?" Emma looked where Lily was pointing, a sturdy rope hanging from a tall oak swinging out over a shallow part of the lake. Other children were taking turns supervised by several adults. "Okay, but I'm coming with you," Emma said, allowing Lily to tug her toward the water. The afternoon passed in a surreal blend of normalcy and strangeness. Lily played with the other children, unconcerned with their parents' affiliations. Emma found herself talking with the women, some club members' wives, others, old ladies, some independent, but connected through family ties. They asked about her work, about Lily, about how she was coping as a widow. Ordinary conversations in an extraordinary context. As evening approached and the gathering began to disperse, Emma found Lily sitting with Marcus at the end of the dock, both dangling their feet in the water. From a distance, they made an incongruous pair, the massive scarred biker and the small girl with sandy pigtails. But Lily was laughing at something Marcus had said, comfortable, in a way that both reassured and disturbed Emma. "She's a good kid," Raymond said, appearing beside Emma. "Smart, sees people for who they are, not what they look like." Emma nodded, watching as Lily demonstrated something with elaborate hand gestures, Marcus listening with exaggerated seriousness. "She's the best thing in my life, the only thing that matters." "Which is why you'll do whatever it takes to protect her," Raymond observed. "We understand that, Emma Morgan. It's the same for all of us." He nodded toward the remaining families. "Everything we do, everything, is to protect what's ours." The implication hung between them, that the violence, the criminality, the endless conflict with rivals like the Reapers, all of it was justified by this fundamental need to protect one's own. Emma wasn't sure if she found the reasoning convincing or disturbing. As she and Lily drove home in the gathering dusk, Emma stole glances at her daughter in the rearview mirror. Lily was exhausted, eyes heavy, clutching a small stone Marcus had given her. A wishing stone, he had called it, for brave little girls. "Did you have fun today?" Emma asked softly. Lily nodded sleepily. "Marcus showed me how to skip rocks. 5 bounces." Her eyes drifted shut. "He said Daddy would be proud of me." Emma's throat tightened. He's right about that. The familiar motorcycle escort followed them home, a constant reminder of their new reality. As Emma carried a sleeping Lily into the apartment, she found herself scanning the parking lot, the surrounding buildings, looking for unfamiliar faces, unknown threats. The wariness had become second nature in just a few days, a hyper-awareness that left her constantly on edge. Inside, Emma tucked Lily into bed, then double-checked the locks before finally allowing herself to relax. She sank onto the couch, emotionally drained from the day, from watching Lily interact with the Hells Angels, from navigating this strange new world where outlaws were protectors and ordinary life felt increasingly distant. A knock at the door jerked Emma from her thoughts. Cautious, she checked the peephole to find Jake, the young rider who had escorted her from the clubhouse that first night. Emma opened the door a few inches, chain still in place. "What is it?" she asked. Jake's expression was grim. "We need to talk. Can I come in?" Something in his tone, urgency without panic, made Emma nod. She closed the door, removed the chain, then let him enter immediately, securing it behind him. Jake stood awkwardly in her small living room, his leather cut and tattoos incongruous against the backdrop of Lily's artwork on the refrigerator, the family photos on the walls. "There's been a development," he said without preamble. "The Reapers know about Lily." Emma's blood ran cold. "What do you mean, know about her?" "They've been watching her school, following her and your sister when they go to the park." Jake's expression darkened. Max Wilson himself was parked across from her school yesterday. Fear, sharp and metallic, flooded Emma's mouth. "Why wasn't I told? Raymond didn't want to scare you unnecessarily. We had men there watching the watchers." Jake shifted uncomfortably. "But today, this was left on your car while you were at the lake." He handed Emma an envelope, unmarked except for her name written in block letters. With trembling fingers, she opened it. Inside was a photograph. Marcus on the night of the accident, lying injured in the rain. Across it, written in red marker, "Next time he won't be so lucky. Neither will you. Dot." Emma's knees weakened. She sank onto the couch, the photograph clutched in her hand. "Dot, what does that mean?" Jake's expression was carefully neutral. "Dot is what some people call a child, like little Dot." Understanding dawned horrible and cold. They were threatening Lily, using a child as leverage in their war against the Hells Angels. Emma thought she might be sick. "Who does this?" she whispered. "What kind of people threaten children?" "The kind without honor," Jake said simply. "The kind we're fighting." Emma looked toward Lily's bedroom door, fear giving way to something harder, sharper. "What do we do now?" Jake studied her face, seeming to approve of what he saw there, not panic, but resolve. "Raymond is arranging additional security. Brothers will be watching the school, your workplace, this apartment, around the clock." "And if that's not enough," Jake's eyes hardened, "then we take the fight to them." After he left, Emma sat in the darkness of her living room, the photograph on the coffee table before her. Everything had changed in the span of a week. Her ordinary life replaced by one where motorcycle clubs waged war around her, where her daughter was a target, where the line between protector and threat had blurred beyond recognition. Emma thought of Marcus, of how gentle he had been with Lily, despite his fearsome appearance. She thought of Raymond with his talk of family and protection. And she thought of Max Wilson, a man she had never met, who nonetheless was willing to threaten an 8-year-old child to settle a score. As fear and fury warred within her, Emma made a decision. If the Reapers wanted to use Lily as a weapon against the Angels, against Emma herself, then they had miscalculated badly. They had awakened something they couldn't possibly understand, a mother's determination to protect her child no matter the cost. Emma picked up her phone and dialed Marcus's number, which he had given her at the lake, for emergencies. "I need to talk to Raymond," she said when he answered. "Tonight, I want to know everything about the Reapers, about Max Wilson, about how we end this." Marcus was silent for a moment, perhaps surprised by the steel in her voice. "I'll pick you up in 20 minutes, he said finally. "Once Lily's asleep, we'll go to Raymond." As Emma hung up, she caught sight of her reflection in the darkened window. A woman transformed by fear and resolution, a widow who had stopped to help and found herself in a war. But now, with Lily threatened, it was becoming her war too. And Emma Morgan would not surrender without a fight. Dawn broke over Riverdale, pale light filtering through Emma's kitchen window. She hadn't slept, her mind racing with the revelations of the previous night. The coffee before her had grown cold, untouched, as she stared at the photograph spread across her kitchen table. Max Wilson. The name now had a face. A man in his 40s with cold eyes and a tight mouth captured in surveillance photos the Angels had shared. Leader of the Reapers, architect of the campaign against the Hells Angels, the man who had threatened her daughter. Emma gathered the photos, sliding them back into the manila envelope Raymond had given her. The meeting at the clubhouse had lasted until nearly 3 in the morning. A war council where Emma had learned more about motorcycle club rivalries, territory disputes, and personal vendettas than she had ever wanted to know. But knowledge was power, and power was what she needed to protect Lily. A small sound from the hallway made Emma look up. Lily stood in the doorway, hair tousled from sleep, clutching her rabbit. "Mommy, why are you up so early?" Emma forced a smile, quickly tucking the envelope into a drawer. "Just thinking about work, squirt. Hungry for breakfast." As Emma made pancakes, Lily chattering about her dreams, she felt a profound disconnect between this domestic moment and the dark reality that now surrounded them. How could she maintain this bubble of normalcy for Lily while navigating a world of rival gangs and threats? "Can we go to the park after school?" Lily asked, syrup dotting the corner of her mouth. Emma hesitated. The park was exposed, difficult to secure. Jake had advised against public spaces until things with the Reapers were resolved. "Not today, honey. How about we play at home instead? I'll rent that movie you've been wanting to see." Lily's face fell slightly, but she nodded. "Okay. Can Marcus come watch it too?" The innocent question jarred Emma. In just days, the formidable Hell's Angel had somehow become a presence in Lily's life, a friendly figure rather than a source of fear. Emma wasn't sure how she felt about that. "Marcus is pretty busy, sweetheart. Maybe another time." After dropping Lily at school, watching as Jake and another rider took up positions across the street, visible reminders of the protection surrounding her daughter, Emma drove to the garage. Frank noticed the dark circles under her eyes immediately. "You look like Hellum," he said, concern evident in his weathered face. "Everything okay?" Emma considered lying, but exhaustion weakened her resolve. "It's complicated, Frank. I helped someone I shouldn't have. Now I'm dealing with the consequences." Frank's expression darkened. "Hell's Angels are bad news, Emma. And if they're interested in you, there's worse coming." He lowered his voice. "I've got a cousin in Seattle. He could use a good mechanic. Might be a good time for you and Lily to take a vacation. Indefinite vacation." The offer touched Emma. Frank's gruff concern, his immediate willingness to help her escape. A week ago, she might have accepted. Now she knew better. "They'd find us," she said simply. "But thanks, Frank. Really." The morning passed in a blur of oil changes and brake jobs, Emma working mechanically while her mind wrestled with the decision before her. Raymond had offered a solution, one that made her stomach turn, but that might be the only way to ensure Lily's safety. "Send her away," he had said, his voice gentle despite the harsh words. "Your sister, a relative out of state, somewhere the Reapers can't find her. Just until this is settled." "And how long will that be?" Emma had demanded. Raymond's silence had been answer enough. This conflict had been building for years, personal animosity layered over territorial disputes and competing businesses. It wouldn't end quickly or cleanly. At lunch, Emma sat in her car, phone in hand, staring at Janet's number on the screen. Her sister would take Lily without question, would protect her niece fiercely. But could Emma bear to be separated from her daughter after Michael's death? They had become a unit, supporting each other through grief, building a new life together. To send Lily away felt like another loss, another fracturing of their already broken family. And yet the alternative, keeping Lily close while the Reapers circled, was unthinkable. Emma dialed, her heart heavy. "Janet's me. I need a favor. A big one." An hour later, arrangements were made. Janet would take Lily to their aunt's house in Minnesota, far from Riverdale and its motorcycle club wars. They would leave tomorrow, driving rather than flying, to minimize records of their journey. Emma had 2 weeks of vacation saved up. Frank had grudgingly agreed to let her use it, starting immediately. As Emma hung up, a text message appeared on her phone. "Need to talk. Important. Meet at diner on Route 16. 2 p.m. Come alone. So I am, Marcus." What could be so urgent that it couldn't wait until she picked up Lily from school? Emma checked the time, 1:30. She could make the diner by 2 and still be back in time for school pickup. The diner was a trucker stop on the highway, anonymous and busy enough to be safe for a meeting. Emma parked between 2 semis, scanning the lot for Marcus's motorcycle. She didn't see it, but that wasn't unusual. The Angels often parked out of sight, cautious about being observed. Inside the diner was half full, mostly truckers and locals grabbing late lunches. Emma slid into a booth near the back facing the door as Marcus had taught her. Always know your exits, he had said. Always see who's coming in. Minutes ticked by. 2 o'clock came and went. Emma ordered coffee, then a refill, growing increasingly uneasy. Marcus was never late. Punctuality was part of club discipline, he had explained, a small but significant way of showing respect. At 2:20, Emma tried calling him. The phone rang through to voicemail. She texted, receiving no response. Something was wrong. As she was gathering her purse to leave, the bell above the diner door jingled. Emma looked up, expecting Marcus's imposing figure. Instead, a lean man with close-cropped hair and sharp features entered, scanning the room with calculated casualness. Nothing marked him as a reaper. No leather cut, no visible club insignia. But instinct raised the hairs on Emma's neck. She kept her head down, hair falling forward to partially shield her face as the man made his way toward the counter. He ordered coffee, then turned, leaning against the counter as he surveyed the diner again. His gaze passed over Emma. Return lingered. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Don't react. Man at counter is Reaper. Marcus's phone stolen. Message was fake. Leave casually. Car waiting him back. R. Raymond. Somehow he had known about the fake message, had arranged an escape. Emma's heart raced, but she kept her expression neutral. She paid for her coffee, gathered her things, and walked toward the restrooms at the back of the diner. The hall led past the bathrooms to a rear exit, as in most highway establishments. Outside, a nondescript sedan idled Jake in the driver's seat. Emma slid into the passenger side, ducking low as Jake accelerated out of the lot. What's happening? She demanded, adrenaline making her voice shake. Jake's expression was grim. Setup. Reapers got Marcus's phone yesterday. They've been using it to lure people into traps. Cold fear washed through Emma. Is Marcus? He's fine, Jake assured her quickly. Pissed as hell that they got his phone, but fine. Raymond sent men to Lily's school as soon as we figured out what was happening. She's safe. Emma's relief was short-lived. They have his contacts. They know about Lily, about Janet. We're handling it, Jake said, his tone more confident than his expression. Raymond's arranged a safe house. We'll pick up Lily from school and meet him there. The safe house turned out to be a small cabin about 30 minutes outside town, nestled among pine trees at the end of a winding dirt road. 2 motorcycles were already parked outside, their riders standing guard. Inside the cabin was simple but clean. A main room with kitchen and living areas. 2 small bedrooms, basic furnishings. Raymond met them at the door, his expression grave. Emma, good. We were worried. Emma paced the small living room, unable to sit. This is escalating too quickly. First threats, now traps. What happens when Lily gets caught in the middle? Raymond's eyes were sympathetic but unyielding. That's why we're here, keeping you both safe until this is resolved. And how exactly will it be resolved? Emma demanded. More violence, more retaliation. When does it end? Before Raymond could answer, the sound of vehicles approaching made everyone tense. Jake moved to the window, hand moving instinctively to his waistband. It's Marcus, he reported, visibly relaxing, with the kid. Moments later, Lily burst through the door, backpack bouncing against her small frame. Her eyes widened at the unfamiliar surroundings, but her face lit up when she saw Emma. Mom, Marcus picked me up from school in a truck. He said we're having an adventure. Emma gathered Lily into a tight hug, meeting Marcus's eyes over her daughter's head. His expression was apologetic, understanding her fear without need for words. That's right, Squirt. A little vacation. Emma managed a smile that felt brittle. Like camping, but with a real bed. Lily seemed to accept this explanation, her natural resilience carrying her through the strangeness of the situation. She explored the cabin with enthusiasm, claiming the smaller bedroom as her own, unpacking her rabbit and the few belongings Marcus had thought to grab from her classroom. As Lily settled in, the adults gathered in the main room, voices low. We need to move quickly, Marcus said without preamble. Wilson knows too much, has too much leverage. Raymond nodded grimly. We've called in brothers from other charters, strength in numbers. Emma looked between them, understanding dawning, cold and terrible. You're planning for war. Marcus didn't deny it. The Reapers crossed a line when they threatened Lily, when they tried to lure you into a trap. This ends now. Emma thought of Lily in the next room, innocent and unaware of the violence brewing around her. She thought of Janet waiting to take Lily to Minnesota. She thought of the life she had built from the ashes of Michael's death. Imperfect but honest, the foundation she had laid for her daughter's future. No, she said, her voice stronger than she felt. There has to be another way. Raymond's eyes were kind but firm. Sometimes there isn't, Emma. There is, she insisted, an idea forming. I've been thinking about this all day, about what I learned last night. She took a deep breath. I need to talk to Max Wilson directly. The reaction was immediate. Marcus's thunderous, absolutely not. Raymond's sharp intake of breath. Jake's incredulous stare. Hear me out, Emma said, raising a hand to stem their protests. This started as a club war, but it's become personal. Wilson blames Marcus for his sister's death. He's using me and Lily as leverage because it's personal now. Marcus's jaw tightened. All the more reason to keep you away from him. Or all the more reason for me to talk to him, Emma countered. I'm a widow raising a daughter alone. I understand loss, how it can warp you. Maybe he'll listen to me in a way he won't listen to you. Raymond studied her thoughtfully. It's too dangerous. More dangerous than what's coming if this escalates further. More dangerous than Lily growing up without a mother. If something happens to me in your war, Emma's voice cracked slightly. I didn't ask for any of this. I just stopped to help someone in the rain. But now I'm part of it, and I need to find my own way through. Silence fell over the cabin, broken only by the sound of Lily humming to herself in the next room. Finally, Marcus spoke, his voice low and intense. Wilson is unpredictable, volatile. You think you can reason with him, but he's not reasonable. Not when it comes to Kate. Emma met his gaze steadily. Maybe not, but I have to try, for Lily's sake. Raymond exchanged looks with Marcus, some unspoken communication passing between them. After a long moment, Raymond nodded. We'll arrange it. Controlled environment. Neutral ground. Brothers nearby, but not visible. His eyes held a warning. But if he makes one wrong move, one threat... I understand, Emma said, relief and fear mingling in her chest. Thank you. As the men moved outside to make calls and arrangements, Emma stood in the doorway to Lily's room, watching her daughter arrange her few possessions on the small dresser. Lily looked up, offering a smile that squeezed Emma's heart. Is this like when Daddy went away? Lily asked, her voice small but not afraid. Are we hiding from bad guys? Emma crossed to sit beside her on the bed, gathering her thoughts. Lily had been only 5 when Michael died, too young to fully understand, but old enough to know that sometimes the world took people away without warning. Kind of squirt, but it's temporary, just until some grown-up problems get sorted out. Lily nodded solemnly. Marcus said he wouldn't let anything bad happen to us. He promised. Emma's throat tightened. Somehow, in the chaos of the past week, this massive, scarred outlaw had become a figure of protection in her daughter's eyes. A guardian rather than a threat. Emma wasn't sure whether to be grateful or terrified by this development. Marcus is a good man to have on our side, she said, finally choosing her words carefully. But remember what I always tell you, who keeps you safe more than anyone. Lily leaned against her mother's side. You do, Mom. Always you. Emma kissed the top of her head, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo. That's right, and I always will, no matter what. That night, as Lily slept, Emma prepared for the most dangerous gamble of her life, a face-to-face meeting with the man who had threatened everything she loved. The bar was called Neutral Ground, a name that felt both appropriate and ironic given the circumstances. Located on the county line, it catered to truckers, locals, and travelers passing through, a place where affiliations were checked at the door, and the only rule was to drink in peace. Emma arrived precisely at noon, parking her sedan between 2 pickup trucks. Marcus had insisted on driving her, but Emma had refused. This meeting needed to be on her terms, or it wouldn't work at all. Inside the bar was dim and cool, smelling of beer, and decades of cigarette smoke ground into the wooden floors. A few patrons sat at the bar watching a baseball game on the mounted television. A jukebox played classic rock at a volume just low enough for conversation. Emma spotted him immediately. Max Wilson sat alone at a corner booth, a bottle of beer untouched before him. In person, he looked older than in the surveillance photos, lines around his eyes and mouth, speaking of stress and loss. His hair was short graying at the temples, and while he wore no Reaper insignia in this neutral space, the club's influence was evident in his bearing and the watchful tension of his shoulders. Gathering her courage, Emma crossed the room and slid into the booth across from him. Wilson's eyes, coal blue assessing, tracked her movement with predatory focus. "Emma Morgan," he said, his voice surprisingly soft for a man with such hard eyes, the woman who stopped for Marcus Reeves. Emma met his gaze steadily. "And you're Max Wilson, the man who threatened my 8-year-old daughter." Something flickered across his face, not remorse but perhaps recognition of her directness. "Straight to the point. Good. We understand each other." "I don't think we do," Emma countered. "I understand protecting what's yours. I understand loyalty. What I don't understand is dragging an innocent child into a war that has nothing to do with her." Wilson took a slow sip of his beer, studying Emma over the bottle's rim. "Nothing in this life is innocent once it touches the clubs. You made your choice when you helped Reeves." "I didn't make a choice," Emma said, keeping her voice low but intense. "I saw a human being injured in the rain. I stopped to help. That's not choosing sides. That's basic decency." Wilson's laugh was harsh, devoid of humor. "Decency. In this world, you're either naive or lying to yourself." Emma leaned forward, hands flat on the table. "I'm a widow raising a daughter alone. My husband died 3 years ago. Motorcycle accident. I stopped for Marcus because I couldn't bear the thought of another person dying on the roadside with no one to help." Something in Wilson's expression changed, a subtle shift in opening. "Your husband, what was his name?" "Michael Morgan. He was a graphic designer, had a sport bike he rode on weekends." Emma swallowed past the tightness in her throat. "He was hit by a pickup that crossed the center line. Lay there for half an hour before someone called 911. Wilson was silent for a moment, turning his bottle slowly between his fingers. "My sister Kate was beautiful, smart, had her whole life ahead of her." His eyes hardened, until Marcus Reeves pulled her into his world. Into the drugs, the parties, the life. Emma thought of what Marcus had told her, that Kate was already using when they met, that he had tried to help her get clean. She wondered whose version was true, or if the reality lay somewhere in between and colored by grief and guilt on both sides. "I'm sorry about your sister," Emma said sincerely. "Losing someone you love, it changes you, makes you see the world differently." Wilson's gaze sharpened. "Don't pretend to understand me, Emma Morgan." "I don't," she acknowledged, "but I understand loss. And I understand that threatening my daughter won't bring Kate back, won't give you the peace you are looking for." Wilson's knuckles whitened around his bottle. "This isn't about peace. It's about justice, about consequences. For Marcus, maybe. But what have I done to deserve your threat? What has Lily done?" The question hung between them, unanswered. Emma pressed her advantage. "I've learned things this past week. About the clubs, about the code you live by." She met Wilson's gaze unflinchingly. "Even the Hells Angels don't target children. They have lines they won't cross. Do the Reapers have no honor at all?" It was a calculated risk, challenging a man like Wilson on the concept of honor. His eyes flashed with anger, but something else flickered beneath. Doubt, perhaps, or memory of principles once held. "You don't know what you're talking about," he said, but the conviction in his voice had wavered. Emma pressed forward. "I know Marcus blames himself for Kate's death, even if he won't admit it. I know Raymond believes in protecting families above all else. And I know that whatever happens between your clubs, my daughter deserves to grow up without fear." Wilson was silent, something working behind his eyes, calculations, memories, decisions forming and reforming. "What exactly are you proposing?" he finally asked. Emma took a deep breath. "A truce, not between the clubs. That's not my place, but between you and me. Leave Lily and me out of your war with the Angels. In return, I'll maintain neutrality. No information to the Angels, no involvement of any kind." Wilson's laugh was sharp, disbelieving. "You think it's that simple? You've been seen with them. At their clubhouse, their gatherings. You're marked." "Because I had no choice," Emma countered. "Because your threats forced me to seek their protection." She reached into her purse, withdrawing a folded document she had prepared that morning. She slid it across the table. "This is a record of my husband's accident. Police report coroner's findings. Proof that I have no connection to either club except through circumstance. Her voice softened. I'm just a mother trying to protect her child, Max. Surely you can understand that. Wilson's gaze dropped to the document, then back to Emma's face. Something shifted in his expression. Not softening exactly, but a recalibration of judgment. Your daughter, he said finally. She looks like him, your husband. The question caught Emma off guard. Yes, she has his eyes, his smile. Wilson nodded a barely perceptible movement. He reached into his jacket, withdrawing a photograph and placing it on the table between them. A young woman smiled at the camera, pretty vibrant, with Wilson's same blue eyes, but a gentleness his lacked. Kate, before Reeves, before the drugs. His voice held a grief so raw it transcended years club's conflicts. Emma looked at the photograph, seeing not just Kate Wilson, but the brother who had loved her, who had lost her, whose grief had curdled into a vendetta that now threatened innocent lives. She was beautiful, Emma said softly. You must miss her every day. Wilson's jaw tightened. He reclaimed the photograph, tucking it carefully back into his jacket close to his heart. Every damn day. Silence fell between them, heavy with shared understanding of loss, with the weight of decisions yet to be made. Finally, Wilson spoke. I can't call off the war with the Angels. Too much blood spilled already. Too many lines crossed. Emma nodded, having expected this. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to leave my daughter out of it. Wilson studied her, measuring her worth against some internal standard. You really have no stake in this, no loyalty to Reeves beyond that night in the rain. Emma thought of Marcus with Lily at the lake, teaching her to skip stones. She thought of Raymond's talk of family and protection. She thought of Jake's immediate response when she was in danger. Connections had formed whether she had sought them or not, but her loyalty to Lily superseded all others. My only loyalty is to my daughter, she said truthfully. Everything else is circumstance. Wilson seemed to accept this, draining the last of his beer before setting the bottle down with finality. All right, Emma Morgan, a truce between us. Your daughter remains untouched. You remain neutral. His eyes hardened. But if I learn you've carried information to the Angels, if I see you at their clubhouse or their gatherings again, you won't, Emma assured him, relief washing through her despite the implicit threat. Lily and I will disappear from this conflict as if we were never part of it. Wilson nodded once decisively. Then we're done here. He stood towering over the table for a moment before moving toward the exit. At the door he paused, looking back at Emma with an expression she couldn't quite read. Your husband, he said. Was it quick at the end? Emma's breath caught at the unexpected question. Yes, the coroner said he didn't suffer. Wilson nodded, something like grim satisfaction in his eyes. Good. No one should die alone on the roadside. And then he was gone, the bar door swinging shut behind him. Emma remained seated, legs suddenly too weak to support her. She had done it. Had faced down Max Wilson, had secured a truce for Lily. But at what cost? What promises had she made that she might not be able to keep? Outside, the rumble of motorcycles announced Wilson's departure, accompanied by riders who must have been waiting nearby. Emma waited until the sound faded before rising on unsteady legs and making her way to the door. In the parking lot, Marcus materialized from behind a pickup, his expression a storm of concern and anger. What the hell were you thinking, meeting him alone? I was supposed to be inside. Emma shook her head. It had to be just us, just two people who have lost someone they loved. Marcus's anger faltered, replaced by wary concern. What happened? What did he say? Emma looked up at the man who had irrevocably altered her life by crashing his motorcycle in the rain. The man Lily now called the friendly dragon. The man who, despite everything, had tried to protect them as best he could. He agreed to leave Lily and me out of the conflict. A personal truce. Marcus's eyebrows rose in disbelief. Wilson agreed to that just like that. Not just like that, there were conditions. Emma met his gaze steadily. I can't be involved with the club anymore, Marcus. No clubhouse, no gatherings, no contact. Complete neutrality. Understanding dawned in Marcus's scarred face, followed by something that might have been regret. So this is goodbye. Emma nodded, throat tight with emotions she couldn't name. It has to be, for Lily's sake. Marcus was silent for a long moment, processing this development. Finally, he sighed, a sound heavy with resignation. Raymond won't like it, but he'll understand. Family comes first. That's the code we live by, too. Emma thought of Raymond's words at the lake house about everything they did being to protect what was theirs. Perhaps the clubs weren't so different after all, despite the blood between them. Will you tell him for me and explain why I had to do this? Marcus nodded. I will. And Emma, he hesitated uncharacteristically uncertain. If you ever need anything, anything at all, the offer stands. Club or no club. Emma managed a small smile. Thank you for everything. As she drove away, leaving Marcus standing in the parking lot, Emma felt as though she were closing a chapter of her life. Brief but intense, a strange detour into a world she had never sought to enter. Ahead lay uncertainty. Would Wilson honor their truce? Would the angels respect her need for distance? Could life ever truly return to normal after what she had seen, what she had learned? But one thing was certain. Lily would be safe. Emma had faced down the man who threatened her child and had emerged victorious, not through violence or intimidation, but through the shared understanding of loss, the recognition of humanity beneath club colors and vendettas. 3 weeks passed in a strange limbo. True to her word, Emma maintained complete separation from the Hells Angels. No visits to the clubhouse, no attendance at gatherings, no contact with Marcus or Raymond, beyond a single text message confirming her safe return with Lily to their apartment. On the surface, life returned to its familiar rhythms. Emma went to work at the garage, picked Lily up from school, helped with homework, made dinner. Janet canceled the Minnesota trip, relieved that the immediate danger had passed. To anyone watching, the Morgan women had resumed their ordinary existence, untouched by the conflict that continued to simmer beneath Riverdale's surface. But Emma knew better. She noticed the subtle signs: motorcycles that no longer parked across from their building, the absence of leather-clad men at the edges of her awareness, the strange emptiness where watchful protection had once been. The angels had honored her request for distance, had respected the truce she had negotiated with Wilson. What she couldn't know was whether Wilson had done the same. That question was answered when 3 weeks after the meeting at Neutral Ground, Emma was closing the garage alone, Frank having left early for a doctor's appointment. As she locked the office keys jingling in the gathering dusk, a vehicle pulled into the lot, a black pickup with tinted windows. Instinct tightened her chest. Emma froze, keys clutched in her hand like an inadequate weapon, as the driver's door opened and Max Wilson stepped out. He was alone, hands visible, his posture deliberately non-threatening. Still, Emma's heart hammered against her ribs as she watched him approach, stopping a respectful distance away. Emma Morgan, he said, his voice as calm as it had been into the bar. We need to talk. Emma swallowed, steadying herself. I thought we were done talking. Wilson's expression remained neutral, impossible to read. New developments. Thought you should know. Something in his tone, not threatening but urgent, made Emma nod cautiously. 5 minutes, here in the open. Wilson glanced around the deserted lot. Fair enough, he took a breath as if gathering his thoughts. There's been a shift in the conflict. Reeves has been pushing for a meeting, a sit-down between charters, talking about de-escalation. Surprise loosened Emma's guard slightly. Marcus wants peace. A wry twist of Wilson's mouth suggested it wasn't that simple. Not peace, boundaries, rules of engagement, less collateral damage. Emma processed this, understanding the subtext. Because of Lily and me. Wilson nodded. Apparently seeing things through a mother's eyes changed his perspective, made him think about who gets caught in the crossfire. Emma wasn't sure how to feel about this, that her brief, intense connection with the Hells Angels had somehow influenced their approach to the ongoing conflict. It was both gratifying and disturbing, a reminder of how deeply she had penetrated their world despite her attempts to remain on its periphery. Why are you telling me this? She asked finally. Wilson's gaze was steady, assessing. Because I need to know if it's genuine, if Reeves is playing an angle, setting a trap. Understanding dawned. Wilson was using her as a character witness, trying to gauge Marcus's sincerity through her perception of him. I can't speak for Marcus or the club, Emma said carefully. Our interaction was brief, circumstantial. But you formed impressions, judgments. Wilson's eyes narrowed slightly. You trusted him with your daughter. Emma couldn't deny this. At the lake house, at the safe house, she had allowed Lily to interact with Marcus, had trusted his presence despite his intimidating exterior and violent past. Marcus is complicated, she said finally. Capable of violence, certainly, but also capable of honor, of keeping his word. She met Wilson's gaze directly. If he's offering to talk, I believe he means it. Wilson considered this something working behind his eyes. Calculations, risk assessments, old grudges, wrestling with practical considerations. There's more, he said after a moment. Something you should know about your husband. Emma's breath caught. Michael, what about him? Wilson's expression shifted, becoming almost uncomfortable. I had my people look into his accident after our meeting. Standard procedure when making deals. Verify the other party's story. Emma's hands tightened around her keys, metal edges biting into her palm. And the pickup that hit him belonged to a man named Derek Schultz, ex-member of the Reapers, kicked out for using hard drugs, stealing club funds. Wilson paused, watching her reaction carefully. But before that, he was part of our security detail. Your husband was a witness in a federal case against one of our business partners. Testified about money laundering through his design firm. The world seemed to tilt beneath Emma's feet. What are you saying? Wilson's eyes held something like regret. I'm saying your husband's death may not have been entirely accidental. Schultz was high when he crossed that center line, but the timing, a week after the trial ended, raises questions. Emma felt as though she had been struck. For 3 years, she had lived with the knowledge that Michael's death was a tragic accident, random, senseless, but ultimately without malice. To learn now that it might have been connected to his testimony that the driver had club connections, it reframed everything. Did you, Emma could barely form the words, did you order it? Wilson's expression hardened. No, we don't operate that way. If Schultz was acting on old loyalties, it wasn't on my command. He hesitated, then added, Reeves found this connection when they were digging into your background. Chose not to tell you. The implication was clear. Marcus had protected her from a truth he deemed too painful while Wilson was laying it bare, using it as a wedge between Emma and any lingering loyalty she might feel toward the Angels. Emma took a steadying breath, pushing aside the shock to focus on the immediate situation. So what happens now with the sit-down? Wilson studied her, perhaps surprised by her composure in the face of such revelation. I haven't decided. Part of me thinks it's a trap. Part of me is tired. The admission seemed to cost him. Tired of looking over my shoulder, of counting losses. Emma recognized the weariness in his voice, the exhaustion that came from carrying grief and anger for too long. She had felt it herself in the months after Michael's death, the weight that threatened to pull her under until Lily's needs had given her purpose again. Kate wouldn't want this, she said softly, taking a risk by invoking his sister's name. An endless war with no winners, only casualties. Something flickered across Wilson's face. Pain of remembrance, perhaps, a glimmer of the man he had been before loss hardened him. You didn't know her. No, Emma acknowledged, but I know what it's like to love someone so much that losing them breaks something in you. Something you think can never be fixed. Wilson was silent, his gaze distant, seeing something or someone beyond the darkening parking lot. Meet with Marcus, Emma said into the silence. Hear what he has to say. What do you have to lose? Wilson's focus returned to her sharpened measuring. Everything or nothing at all. He took a step back, decision made. The truce holds Emma Morgan. Whatever happens next, you and your daughter remain outside it. Emma nodded, relieved yet somehow hollow. Thank you. As Wilson returned to his pickup, Emma called after him. Max. He paused, looking back. Whatever you decide, remember there are always children watching, learning from what we do. Something like understanding passed between them. Two people marked by loss, making choices that would shape not just their own futures, but those who came after. Wilson lifted a hand in acknowledgement, then slid into his truck and drove away, leaving Emma alone in the gathering darkness with revelations that would take time to process, with the truth about Michael's death she wasn't yet ready to face. As she drove home, Emma's thoughts were a storm of conflicting emotions. Should she contact Marcus? Warn him about Wilson's uncertainty? Should she demand the truth about what the Angels knew regarding Michael's accident? Or should she maintain her hard-won neutrality, protecting the fragile peace that kept Lily safe? The decision was made for her when she arrived at her apartment building to find Marcus's motorcycle parked in the shadows of the lot, its rider standing beside it. Even in the dim light, Emma recognized his massive frame, the way he held himself, alert yet patient waiting. Emma parked beside him, emotions warring within her. Anger at the withheld information about Michael's accident, gratitude for the protection he had provided, the confusion about the boundaries she herself had established. "You shouldn't be here," she said as she approached, voice low but steady. "Our agreement with Wilson is about to become irrelevant." Marcus interrupted, his expression grave. "Things have accelerated. I needed to warn you." Fear clutched at Emma's throat. "Warn me about what?" Marcus glanced around the parking lot, checking for watchers. "Wilson agreed to the sit-down. Tomorrow night, neutral territory, club presidents, sergeants at arms, no one else." Emma's conversation with Wilson had been mere hours ago. Events were moving faster than she could track. "That's good, isn't it, what you wanted?" Marcus's expression remained somber. "Should be, but there's chatter. Rumors that Wilson's lieutenant, Alex Graves, is planning something. That he's convinced enough members to move against Wilson's leadership. He sees this meeting as weakness." "Wilson just came to see me," Emma admitted, "at the garage, asking if I thought your offer was genuine." Surprise flashed across Marcus's face. "What did you tell him?" "That if you gave your word, you'd keep it." Emma studied him, searching for confirmation of her judgment. "Was I wrong?" Marcus shook his head slowly. "No, but Graves might be staging a coup. If he succeeds, then all bets are off, including your truce." Emma thought of Wilson's weariness, the hint of a man who might be ready to end the cycle of violence. "I don't think Wilson wants more bloodshed. I think he's tired, Marcus. Tired of fighting a war that can't bring his sister back." Something like hope flickered in Marcus's eyes. "You think he'll actually negotiate?" "I think he might, if he's not pushed into a corner. If he feels he can trust the process." Emma hesitated, then added, "He told me something about Michael's accident." Marcus's expression shuddered, guilt flashing briefly before being masked. "Emma, you knew," she said, confirmation rather than question. "You knew the driver had Reaper connections, that he might have been targeting Michael because of his testimony, and you didn't tell me." Marcus didn't deny it. "Would it have changed anything, made his loss easier to bear, given you any peace at all?" The questions hung between them, unanswerable, because they both knew the truth. Knowledge rarely healed such wounds. Often it only deepened them. "I thought I was protecting you," Marcus continued when Emma didn't respond. "Giving you one less burden to carry." Emma wanted to be angry, to feel betrayed by this withholding of truth. But she understood the impulse. Hadn't she done the same with Lily, shielding her from harsh realities she wasn't ready to face? "We need to focus on what matters now," she said finally. "This sit-down. If it goes wrong." "If it goes wrong, the truce might not hold," Marcus finished grimly. "Which is why I came to warn you. To tell you to be ready to leave town, just in case." Fear tightened Emma's chest. Not for herself, but for Lily. After everything they had endured, the prospect of running, of uprooting their life, felt like another kind of loss. "There has to be another way," she said, determination hardening her voice. "This has to end, Marcus, not just for Lily and me, but for all of you. How many more will die before it's enough?" Marcus's expression softened, something like regret passing across his scarred features. "That's why we're trying, Emma. That's why the sit-down matters." Emma made a decision, then one that surprised even herself. "I want to be there." Marcus stared at her in disbelief. "Absolutely not. You finally got yourself and Lily clear of this. I won't let you step back into the fire." "It's not your choice to make," Emma reminded him, a quiet strength in her voice. "It never was. I have a stake in this too. Both clubs have affected my life, my husband's death. Maybe what this sit-down needs is someone who stands outside both sides. Someone who reminds you all what you're fighting for." They stood in silence, the weight of what might come pressing down on both of them. Finally, Marcus sighed, a sound of resignation, of acceptance. "Raymond said you had heart, more than most." He shook his head slightly. "If you're determined to do this, I'll arrange it. But Lily stays with Janet. No negotiation on that." Emma nodded, relief mingling with apprehension. "Agreed." As Marcus turned to go, Emma called after him. "Marcus," he paused, looking back. Whatever happens tomorrow, remember there are always children watching, learning from what we do. Understanding passed between them, a recognition of responsibility that transcended club loyalties and personal vendettas. Marcus nodded once, a gesture that carried the weight of promise, then mounted his motorcycle and rode away into the night. Emma stood in the parking lot long after the sound of his engine had faded, contemplating the path that had brought her here and the choices that lay ahead. Tomorrow, she would once again place herself between rival forces, seeking peace not just for Lily's sake, but for all those caught in the crossfire of a conflict that had consumed too many lives already. The meeting place was an old hunting lodge 10 miles outside town, set back from the main road and surrounded by dense woods. As Emma's sedan crunched over the gravel drive, she counted 8 motorcycles with Hell's Angels, colors parked in a neat row, and a similar number bearing the Reaper's insignia lined up opposite. The separation was deliberate, symbolic. 2 tribes maintaining boundaries even in this moment of potential reconciliation. Emma had spent the morning with Lily trying to make their goodbye feel routine despite the uncertainty churning inside her. Janet had agreed to take Lily for a few days of cousin time, unaware of what Emma planned to do. The weight of that deception sat heavy as Emma parked between the opposing rows of bikes, a neutral presence in contested territory. Raymond waited at the lodge entrance, his expression a mixture of concern and respect when he saw Emma approach. "You came," he said simply. "I said I would." Emma glanced at the building. "Are they inside?" Raymond nodded. "Wilson and his officers. Marcus and our leadership. They've been circling each other like wolves for 20 minutes. He studied her face. "You understand what you're walking into. These men don't easily set aside blood debts." "I understand better than most," Emma replied, thinking of Michael, of the revelations about his death. "That's why I'm here." In the odd, the tension was palpable. The lodge's main room had been arranged with a large table at its center, Hell's Angels on one side, Reapers on the other. Marcus sat at Raymond's right hand, his scarred face impassive, but his eyes tracking Emma's entrance. Opposite them, Max Wilson presided over his delegation, including a younger man with cold eyes who watched Wilson with barely concealed impatience. Alex Graves, Emma guessed, the lieutenant Marcus had warned her about. Conversation ceased as Emma entered. Wilson's eyebrows rose slightly, but he offered no objection to her presence. Some of his men were less composed, exchanging glances and muttered comments. "What's she doing here?" Graves demanded, directing his question to Wilson rather than to Emma herself. "This is club business." Before Wilson could respond, Emma spoke. "I'm here because both your clubs have affected my life, my husband's death, my daughter's safety." She met Graves' hostile stare. "I'm here to remind you all what's at stake." Wilson studied her for a moment, then nodded. "She stays." His tone left no room for argument, though Graves' expression darkened further. Emma took a seat at the end of the table belonging to neither side but positioned to see everyone. Raymond cleared his throat. "We called this meeting to establish boundaries, rules of engagement, to end the escalation that's hurting both our clubs." Graves laughed, a harsh sound. "You called this meeting because you're losing, because we've got you on the run." Marcus's hands flexed on the table, but his voice remained controlled. "We called this meeting because innocent people are getting caught in the crossfire, because we've all lost enough." "Spare us the moral high ground, Reeves," Graves spat. "You didn't care about innocent people when Kate was alive." Wilson shot his lieutenant a warning look. "Enough, Alex." But Graves wasn't finished. "You brought a witness here." He nodded toward Emma. "So let her witness the truth. Tell her how you got Kate hooked on pills, Reeves, how you dragged her down until she couldn't climb back up." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Kate was already using when I met her. I tried to help her, to get her clean." "Liar," Graves hissed. Wilson's hands slammed onto the table. "I said enough." He turned to Raymond. "You wanted to talk boundaries, so talk." For the next hour, the club leaders negotiated. Territory lines, business interests, retribution for past wrongs. Emma listened, watching the dynamics shift and settle. Wilson seemed genuinely interested in de-escalation, while Graves grew increasingly agitated. Among the Angels, Raymond maintained a measured calm, though some of his officers clearly preferred more aggressive stances. As the conversation circled toward agreement, Graves suddenly addressed Emma directly. "You know he's lying to you, right?" His eyes glittered with malice. Reeves, he found out about your husband months ago, that one of our ex-members killed him. He's been using you from the start. The grieving widow, the perfect sympathy play. Marcus half rose from his seat, rage contorting his features, but Emma's quiet voice cut through the tension. Is that true, Marcus? Did you know who I was before that night in the rain? The silence that followed told her everything. Marcus slowly sat back down, his expression pained. Not exactly, he said finally. I knew Michael Morgan had testified. I knew he died in a motorcycle accident. I didn't know you were his wife until I saw the photo in your car, the wedding ring. Emma absorbed this, the pieces realigning in her mind. So when I stopped to help you, it was coincidence, Marcus insisted. But afterward, when I realized who you were, yes, I looked into it, found the connection to Schultz. Graves laughed again, and kept it to yourself, used her grief to manipulate her loyalty. Enough, Wilson snapped. We're not here to rehash the past. But Emma had connected another piece. That's why you were on that road that night, wasn't it, Marcus? You were investigating Michael's death, trying to find out if it was really an accident. Marcus's silence was confirmation enough. Jesus, one of the angels muttered. Emma turned to Wilson. And did you know about Michael's testimony about Schultz? Wilson met her gaze evenly. Not until recently. Schultz was expelled from the club 2 years before Morgan's accident. If he acted against your husband, it wasn't on my orders. Graves shifted in his seat. We don't target civilians. Never have. No, Emma agreed quietly. Just use them as leverage. Threaten their children. Graves had the grace to look away. The revelation should have shattered everything. Learning that her chance encounter with Marcus hadn't been chance at all, that her husband's death might be connected to both clubs in ways she hadn't imagined. But instead, Emma felt a strange clarity, as if the final pieces of a puzzle had fallen into place. This is why it has to stop, she said, addressing the entire table. All of it. The vendettas, the escalation, the collateral damage. Her voice strengthened. Kate died because of addiction, not because of Marcus. Michael died because a drug addict crossed the center line, not because of club orders. But how many others have died because you all decided revenge was more important than moving forward? Wilson studied her, something like respect in his eyes. Graves opened his mouth to object, but Wilson silenced him with a look. What are you proposing, Emma Morgan? Wilson asked. Emma met his gaze steadily. The same thing you came here to discuss: boundaries, rules. A way to coexist without destroying each other and everyone caught in between. She looked around the table. You all talk about honor, about family, about protection. Prove it. Show that those aren't just words. Silence fell over the room. Raymond exchanged glances with Wilson, a moment of understanding passing between the two presidents. After a long moment, Wilson nodded. Territorial lines, non-interference pacts, grievance procedures that don't involve violence. He looked at Raymond. That's what you proposed. I'm willing to agree. Graves surged to his feet. This is weakness. She's got no place here, no right to... Sit down, Alex, Wilson said, his voice deadly quiet. Or leave. The choice hung in the air between them. Loyalty to the club or commitment to conflict. For a moment, Emma thought Graves might challenge his president outright. Instead, after a tense silence, he sat his expression murderous. Over the next 2 hours, the details were hammered out. Territory boundaries, business arrangements, a system for addressing grievances that didn't involve retaliation. Emma watched as enemies became negotiators, as men who had been ready to kill each other found common ground in their desire for stability, for peace. When the last point was settled, Raymond extended his hand across the table. Wilson hesitated only briefly before taking it. A handshake, not friendship, but a beginning. As the meeting broke up, Marcus approached Emma, hanging back until they were alone in a corner of the room. I should have told you, he said quietly, about Michael, about why I was on that road. Emma nodded. Yes, you should have. I thought I was protecting you. You were protecting yourself, Emma corrected. Afraid I'd blame you. Afraid I'd walk away. Marcus didn't deny it. Would you have if you'd known? Emma considered this. Maybe, probably. But we'll never know now, will we? Before Marcus could respond, Wilson approached. The two men eyed each other warily. Years of hatred not easily set aside despite the agreement they just reached. "Emma Morgan," Wilson said, ignoring Marcus entirely. "You surprised me today." Emma offered a tired smile. "Seems to be becoming a habit." Wilson's mouth quirked in what might have been amusement. "The truce holds. You and your daughter remain outside club business." He glanced at Marcus, "regardless of any personal connections." Marcus bristled but held his peace. Emma nodded her thanks. "I hope this holds," she said, "for everyone's sake." Wilson studied her for a moment. "Kate would have liked you," he said finally, the words clearly costing him. Then he turned and walked away, his officers falling in behind him. Emma watched them go, a strange mixture of emotions washing through her. Closure, perhaps, or something approaching it. The knowledge that her husband's death, while not the random accident she had believed, had not been the targeted hit she had briefly feared. The realization that her impulsive act of kindness on a rainy night had led in a roundabout way to this moment of tentative peace. "What now?" Marcus asked quietly. Emma thought of Lily waiting at Janet's house, innocent and unaware of how close they had come to having their lives upended again. She thought of the garage of Frank's gruff concern of the ordinary life she had built from the ashes of tragedy. "Now I go back to being Emma Morgan," she said simply. "Mechanic, mother, widow." Marcus nodded, understanding in his eyes. In us, Emma considered him. This scarred, complex man who had crashed into her life like the storm that had brought them together. "I don't know yet," she admitted. "I need time, space to think." "You'll have it," Marcus promised. "Whatever you decide." 3 days later, Emma stood in her kitchen, watching Lily set the table for dinner. They had fallen back into their routines. Schoolwork, homework, meals together. On the surface, nothing had changed. But Emma felt different, altered by her journey through the darkness between two warring tribes. A knock at the door made her tense momentarily, old fears not easily dismissed. But when she checked the peephole, it was Jake who stood outside alone, and without his cut-looking, almost ordinary in jeans and a plain t-shirt. Emma opened the door cautiously. "Jake?" He offered a hesitant smile. "Raymond asked me to check in. Make sure you and the kid are okay." "We're fine," Emma said, not unkind but reserved. Jake nodded. "Good, that's good." He hesitated, then added, "Things are quiet. The agreement's holding." Relief washed through Emma. "I'm glad." "And Wilson's lieutenant, Graves, he's been sent to another charter. Out of state." Emma understood the implications. Wilson was consolidating his position, removing those who might challenge the peace. Smart move. "Yeah." Jake shifted, uncomfortable with small talk. "Anyway, just wanted you to know, you're still under the wing if you need anything. Ever." Emma thought about this. The strange, unexpected protection that had emerged from chaos. Not unwelcome, but not simple either. "Thank you," she said finally. "Tell Raymond I appreciate it." As Jake turned to go, Lily appeared at Emma's side, curious about their visitor. "Hi," she said brightly. "Are you one of the friendly dragons too?" Jake's startled expression made Emma smile despite herself. "Kind of," he admitted, glancing at Emma for permission to engage. "Jake was just checking in," Emma explained to Lily, "making sure we're okay." Lily nodded, accepting this as perfectly normal. "We're making spaghetti. Do you want some?" The simple, childish offer of hospitality, so at odds with the violence and suspicion of the adult world, caught them both off guard. Jake looked to Emma, who found herself nodding slightly. "I'd like that," Jake said, surprise and something like gratitude in his voice. "If it's okay with your mom." "It's okay," Emma said, making a decision she hadn't known she was going to make until that moment. "Just dinner. As friends." As she stepped back to let Jake enter, Emma caught sight of a motorcycle parked across the street. Not Jake's, she realized, but Marcus's. He sat astride it, watching from a distance, respectful of the boundaries she had set. When he saw her notice him, he lifted a hand in quiet acknowledgement, then started his engine and rode away, giving her the space she had asked for. Emma closed the door, turning back to her daughter and their unexpected guest. The past week had taught her that life rarely followed predictable paths, that kindness could lead to danger, but also to unexpected strength. She had stopped for a stranger in the rain and found herself caught between rival forces, had navigated loss and betrayal, and emerged with a clearer understanding of her own resilience. Whatever came next, whether Marcus remained in their lives or not, Whether the fragile peace between the clubs held or fractured, Emma knew she could face it. She had survived the worst, already had rebuilt from tragedy once. If necessary, she would do so again. But for now, there was dinner to finish, a child to love, a life to reclaim. Emma moved to the kitchen, listening to Lily's cheerful chatter and Jake's hesitant responses, and felt something she hadn't expected. Not just relief that the danger had passed, but gratitude for the journey that had brought her here. In a world where stopping to help a stranger could lead anywhere, Emma Morgan had learned that the most powerful force wasn't the loyalty of outlaw clubs or the threat of their vengeance. It was the quiet, everyday courage to keep moving forward, to choose kindness, despite its risks, to build a life worthy of the child watching and learning from her choices. And in that knowledge, there was a kind of peace that no club war could threaten, no loss could diminish. It was Emma realized as she stirred the sauce and smiled at her daughter's laughter enough. More than enough. It was everything.